Hello, welcome to the live streaming of the Nambour Heritage Soundtrail. My name is Hamish Sewell and I'm the founder and the primary producer with the Soundtrails app, which runs from northern New South Wales into southern Queensland. And today we're talking the Nambour Heritage Soundtrail with Heritage Librarian Hayne. And this is part of the international event, the Soundwalk September event. And we're coming to you from the Red Couch studio, Stories on the Red Couch from Palmwoods. So before we begin, I'd just like to do a recognition of the custodial owners of the land here in the Sunshine Coast, which is the Cubby Cubby people, the Jinnaburra to the south, and also recognise the elders from the past, present and emerging elders here. So we're talking today connection to country and stories connected to country, and this is very much what the Nambour Heritage Soundtrail is about. It's really about providing an immersive experience on country that connect us to the stories, the voices, the people in the community. And of course, the person who is an expert in this area is Hayne. Hi, Jenny.
Hello, Hamish. Hello, everyone.
Jenny, do you want to just introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Sure. When you said to me, tell us what you do, I thought, gee, I'll have to cut this back a little bit, but here we go. So I'm a local, meaning that I've lived on the coast here for the majority of my life. I went to high school in Namball, so I guess that makes me local. I've worked in libraries most of my working life, apart from when I was off with, family duties, as they say, in the middle when my children were young. I've always had a love for libraries, a love for history, and the stories that come with it. The Heritage Library's always been my perfect job, I guess. And there were many years when I was in the general part of the library that I still loved what I did, but I always had a hankering for this history of the local area. What else can I tell you? I work here in the Heritage Library with a small team of very dedicated people. There's only 3 of us at present, and we gather the local history that comes our way. Unfortunately, with just such a small team, we can't get out that much, and especially now during the COVID year, it's been very difficult to continue gathering history. In the past, we've done it by using our local newspapers, and of course, that's also been hampered a little in recent times. But we're looking to the future, and there are new ways to do these things. So we're looking at different ways to gather our history. History's a really important part of the community. People coming to the area would often come to us to get a bit of a grounding in what's been happening in the area and why things are the way they are. Like, why is Namball an older town than those places along the beach? There's a lot of interest in understanding where people might be settling, and for them to know what's going on. Of course, to do this gathering, we need we lean very heavily on our local families and people who've lived in the area for any length of time, because we can't really go out and collect everything. So donations of family material to our collections is really important to us. And that's how we've built our collection over the last probably 40 years, I think. We have collections in many forms. So, there's the usual books, brochures, newspapers, maps, things like that. And they're in all sorts of formats these days. So that keeps us very busy. The other thing we do is talk to a lot of people. People say to me, what do you do all day? And my staff tell me that I talk all day. So that's probably what I do a lot of, and that's communication with people who are new to the area or who want information about the area, or even when I'm gathering that information from them. I think I'd better stop talking or we'll run out of time this afternoon, Hamish.
Okay, Jenny, thank you. No, that's great. Terrific. Okay, so let's have a look at how the Nambour Soundtrail, the Nambour Heritage Soundtrail works. So we've just got a few screenshots here which we'll share with the audience. And by the way, for anyone who's watching today, you're welcome to fire in some questions on Facebook and we'll try to answer them. So one of the first shots that we've got here is how to download the Nambour Soundtrail. And basically you just go to iTunes or to Google Play and you download it. And hopefully we're going to have a nice picture coming up here. Then, of course, once you have downloaded the Soundtrail, you would download the Nambour Soundtrail and then you will see yourself on a map. And we should be able to see ourselves on a map here. And you can see on this map that we've got a range of different stories which are all around us. And you can see those green fields there. They're picking up via GPS. So that means as we walk, you can see the start point there. As we walk in and out of stories that pick up via GPS. And when you walk into that field, that story will automatically kick up. And if you happen to walk into one of the first stories along Curry Street, what do you know? It's the Vogue Cinema, and you can see that there's the Vogue Cinema there. Now that will automatically start to play. You don't actually have to hit play there. And you get this beautiful story. And so in essence, basically, we're talking about a very immersive storied experience across the town of Nambour. We've got John Coghill, who's the narrator, the guy who was the ex-Powderfinger drummer. We've got some fantastic music from Lee Hardesty and Leon Tussey, who were two local musicians at the time. The Nambour Heritage Soundtrail takes around 70 minutes. You need to bring your sunscreen, your walking shoes, make sure that you've got your phone fully charged up, and off you go. Great fun to do in groups because you can do it with the Bluetooth speaker. So let's now kick in here with one of the first stories that's on the Nambour Heritage Soundtrail. And we've actually got a bit of a special treat today because this was adapted for animation and it was produced by a local artist again called Judy Barras. And we took the story which is on Curry Street around the Vogue Cinema, and this is a bit like what it looks like. Team, can we go?
The opening night was my mother's birthday on the 19th of February 1958. I think it was a Thursday. Everyone was dressed, gloves. I think we had the local band playing outside. The usherettes, we had to wear uniforms. They were grey with a maroon sash, but stilettos, mind you. We ran up and down the steps with stiletto heels. I don't know how we did it. Half our theatre, on Saturday nights especially, was permanently booked. You had to go out the back, down the back where the chocos were to the toilets, the old tin toilets, you know, and old wooden seats.
Because all the fellas that had hearing difficulties from the war and that, they could sit up the back and put these headphones on. So they had all these row of people sit up the back with all these headphones on. And then behind that, Grandad had a crying room. So it had double glazed glass, and mothers with crying babies could go into that room, put on a set of headphones, and of course watch the movie, and none of the crying would get into the theatre. Of course, you'd open that door, they're there'd be 5 babies and they're screaming their head off.
I love that story. It's such a great document of Nambour, and it's amazing to think, isn't it, Jenny, that in those old theatres that they had those sort of separate areas where the mothers with the babies could go and the war veterans could go. It's just hilarious, isn't it?
Yes, it's an interesting concept for these days, that's for sure.
Yeah. Do you remember the Vogue, Jenny?
I do. People of my era would remember the Jaffas down the aisles, and of course with the sloping floor, that was an interesting thing. Anyone, I won't explain what that was all about. I'm sure there's many people out there who know what I'm talking about. I was always struck by how grand it was compared to a lot of buildings in the area at the time. I remember going up those stairs into the main foyer, and the carpet was very plush. I seem to have in my mind lots of reds and golds and draped curtains. It was, I don't know, very MGM, I suppose you would say. That's just my memory of it.
Yeah.
And of course, the dress circle for matinees and, afternoon matinees on the weekend, on Saturday afternoon. It wasn't much of a dress circle, I can assure you, other than you had to pay a little bit more. Yeah. Yes, very interesting times. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in Namball who have lots of memories.
Yeah. And of course, the Venados family who built the Vogue,
yes.
they'd come from Blackwall, I think, originally, and they were, I'm not sure if, forgive me, guys, but I'm not sure if they were running a cinema there, but they came through, I think they'd done very well in Blackwall on the back of the sheep boom, and I think they came through from there. And like so many of those sort of Greek families at that time, they were often running cafes or cinemas.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of notes here about the Vogue Theatre. Apparently, the new Vogue Theatre in Curry Street cost £70,000, and that was in the early 50s, I think around 53, 54. It was described as one of the finest motion picture theatres in provincial Queensland at that time.
Wow.
So that's saying something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it had a bit of a chameleon existence after it closed. I can't quite remember the dates. Time flies these days. But it's had a few other iterations, I suppose you would say. It was Dimmies for some time, and at the moment the doors are closed. So we'll just look out for its.
That's right.
For its next life.
That's right. Jenny, when we were building the Nambour Heritage Soundtrail, we got some people to come in a couple of times to do some recording sessions in the library, and I don't know if you remember, but we deployed a whole lot of microphones around a single table.
Yes, I do remember that.
What was that like? How was that for you?
Oh, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people sitting around a table, having for want of a better word, a bit of a yarn, reminiscence. A lot of memories poured out that probably wouldn't have if it had just been one-on-one.
Yeah.
You'll find when you get a group of people who've shared experiences that you get that sort of, one thing leads to another. And that was really going well that day. There was one, I'm not sure which one you're referring to. Was that the one? We had two ladies in the room at one time, and then we had a group of guys. The guys were. It was like being at the table with a group of schoolboys. I have to tell you, and they would have been probably in their 60s at the time.
I think we've got a photo of that, guys, just out the side. You see a photo of a whole lot of men sitting around a table there. We might be able to show that while we're going live. Yeah. That was, I think that was around Collins Cafe.
That was more about Collins Cafe.
That was more about Collins Cafe, and I think we had.
It might have run over into a few other things. I see.
Yeah. It doesn't look like we're able to find that photo, but let's move on, and let's move on now to Bayards. Now, Bayards is kind of slightly holy ground, really, when it comes to Nambour, isn't it?
Yes, possibly. I don't know. But the Vogue was a massive part of people's lives. But Bayards was there to provide a whole lot of things for people that you don't kind of get in a little country town. I did a little bit of rummaging through our old Namball Chronicle when you said we were going to discuss Bayards. And of course, people may not realise that Bayards actually they came from Brisbane, and they came to Namball in 1931. and they actually moved into what were known as the council shops, which were around the base of the council building down on the corner, and you'll probably talk about that a little bit later. And so Bayards came to Nambour, and they had full-page ads in the local paper. So you can imagine they were coming to town, and they built the building that you'll see on the Soundtrail too. And I think it said Bayards Corner in the brickwork above the awnings. And I remember that it had big plate glass windows all the way around the facade at street level. And in those windows, you had every bit of wear that they would sell, and usual, men's wear, ladies' wear, a whole lot of materials for people to make their own clothes, which was the thing of the day, along with patterns for them to go on with. And then you had a whole, I do remember they had furniture, they had, just everything you can imagine. And the biggest surprise when I talked to people about it was that it actually had downstairs.
Yes.
So you went into the main part of the building, but then there was a balustraded staircase, beautiful timber balustraded staircase that went downstairs, and you went down there, and there was a whole range more of materials that you might have liked to take home. They had everything from, kitchenware, I don't know, all your really nice, how can I put it, nice, better than every day, I suppose you would say. Things a little bit upper crust.
I mean, it was
what Bayards were about.
It was almost like sort of your ubiquitous kind of regional country store, but it was slightly above that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It always reminded me of the shops in Brisbane. Like you'd go, and people who may have done that in the day, you'd go to the Valley, and Myers would have their windows beautifully dressed. Well, Bayards was like that.
Yeah. Okay, let's have a look at Bayard's story. So I'm just going to zoom over here. Whoops, what have we done? I've made a mistake.
We break it.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so we've got the website here for Soundtrails, and we've got the Bayard story. I'll just show for the viewers, I'll just show you what goes on with the website. This is the website here where we've got the Nambour Heritage Soundtrail, and of course Bayards is on the corner of Curry and Howard Street, and here's the Bayard story here, and we're going to have a listen to this right now.
Everybody loved Bayards. Well, it was there from, I can remember it, 1940. When I used to go into town with Mum before I started school, going into Bayards was a treat. Those little things that went up to a cashier up in the, yes, you know what I'm talking about?
It was called a flying fox.
It was magic. It was like watching a fairy tale.
The salesperson would place the cash and the dockets into the canister and pull a lever to release it by a spring-located system to shoot the canister up to be processed.
Seeing this zoom up, not going down, it was going up, and I couldn't understand how. They offered me a job. They had men's wear and ladies' wear and Manchester, dress materials, shoes, furnishings, haberdashery. They had a beaut haberdashery. I was in dress materials, selling material. I would go and buy a pattern and make up the dress in my own size, and then we'd put it in the window. And those materials would go out like a flash.
Bayards was just like that old English haberdashery sort of store on television with a really gay guy.
There was an instance the women used to do the sewing. They make all the dresses. Yeah. I can remember Mum going with Mum and all the sewing, and and they passed those skills on to their daughters, not to their sons.
It was sad when it closed. A lot of sniffing of, wiping of noses and eyes. And also, we ladies can't go and buy our nice pretty undies and things now. We have to go to Woolworths. It's not the same. An odd customer and say, oh, hello, oh, we miss Bayard. It's like 1982. How many years is that? 200, 30-something years. But that's how Bayard's was.
So there's a story from the Nambour Heritage Soundtrail. That's Bayard's, which is on the corner of Curry and Howard Street. And that's pretty much what you get when you stand outside the old Bayard's store. And I love that that sense that there was this sort of upstairs and downstairs, and there were the flying foxes that went between all the well, I suppose they were kind of different shops almost, weren't they, within the one shop?
They were departments.
They were departments.
They were referred with departments.
Yes, yes, yeah. It's a beautiful sort of. It's amazing how when after 8 years of working on Soundtrails, how much these local stores meant to the community. Yeah.
Just one other thing I was going to mention too. Some of the photos that you will see of Bayard's store show the tram lines right outside, like so close.
Yeah.
You could touch them. So it was industry beside commerce there, and it was just taken for granted that was how everything. That's how Namball worked.
Yeah. Yep. So, by the way, the main voice there was Mari Niven, the woman who remembered Bayard's when she was a young girl, and then she in turn went and worked in haberdashery. That was Mari Niven who was the main voice there. And you also heard some of the fellas who Jenny and I were talking about before, who had been who'd come along, and they were reflecting on Bayard's. And so, in terms of kind of me working as a producer on the Nambour Heritage Soundtrail, Bayard's was really a very popular place. Okie doke. So let's now move on to the BCC supermarket. What do we know about the BCC supermarket, Jenny?
Well, unfortunately, it's a wee bit before my time in its heyday, but I believe that the story that you've got on Soundtrails, the lady's name escapes me. I'm sorry.
Veronica Richmond.
Veronica, yes. I spoke with Veronica when we were looking for information, because the BCC's kind of been forgotten, because the building has pretty much gone in and would not be recognisable in that space. But she came to see me one day, and she actually pulled out of her bag her uniform that she had worn when she was working in the BCC. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
And I think you'll see that in your photos on the Soundtrail. But the BCC was one of the first supermarkets, for want of a better term, in Namball. Prior to that, stores way back were, you'd go in with your shopping list and you'd ask for things and they'd put them all in your bag. This was where you could walk around the shelves and pull things off and go to the checkout. Now, Veronica's claim to fame was that she was one of those whiz checkout chicks at the time, and I believe it was 1967 she actually won a speed test for that.
Yes.
Yes, so, that's amazing. And I remember talking to her, and she said to me, you don't think of these things at the time. She said, we had to memorise everything. We had to know how much this stuff was. Can you just imagine people in shops today without their scanners? It just conjures up a before and after, doesn't it?
Yeah, incredible memory test.
The building was very long, I recall. It's where it was where the National Bank is in Namball now, on the corner. I think it's of Queen and Low.
That's right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
The shape of the building hasn't changed much, but along Queen Street, they just had really high windows, and I remember they were louvers, because in those days there was no air conditioning either, which meant it was a fairly hot little box. And the front was all open. with lots of signage in the glass windows where you would go in and out. That's about my only memory of it, because I don't think it was there for much of my time. It must have been when I was at school, I think, that I remember those images. So we're talking probably, I think it's around the time that Woolworths bought them out. They were, BCC was Brisbane Cash and Carry.
That's right, yeah.
And I believe Woolworths bought them around that time that we were looking at that particular story. So then it became Woolworths, and well, the story goes on.
Yeah, okay, let's have a listen to the BCC supermarket, and we'll just go to the Nambour Heritage Soundtrail website, and not that one, and not that one, and that one. Here we go, and let's have a listen.
Checker of the Year. I'm the first one.
Here she is in 1967, Veronica Richmond, knee wear, the day she won Checker of the Year competition. She's the closest one to us in the photo.
We had the competition in Namball that night. We had to put through 40 items in 40 seconds and get the correct price. And I actually won it that night, and then I had to go to Brisbane, but unfortunately I didn't win Queensland, but yeah.
For 9 years, Veronica had worked at the BCC, the Brisbane Cash and Carry supermarket, here on the corner of Queen and Low Streets.
See, Namball didn't have any cash and carry sort of things. Didn't have a Woolworths type thing where you went and pulled your own groceries out, because you didn't know that was going to be the 40 that they chose.
She remembers the day she wagged school and applied for the job. She was 16 years old.
All those things on the shelves, and you had to learn them all off by heart. And it's amazing what you can do if you want a job, isn't it? And they would pay male rates. There was a big difference in those days, yeah. Mixed fruit, sultanas. I used to weigh the lollies, that used to be a good job. Sockeye and salmon and pink and white and all that, yeah, that was the hardest. We all found that the hardest. Okay, we've got Golden Circle cordial, Omo washing detergent, tin stuff, I think that was. What have we got? Sorbent toilet rolls. That's Golden Circle cordial. Don't know what that would be. That's Omo washing detergent. That looks like it could be carnation milk. That'd be Golden Circle fruit of some description. My daughter, when she seen the photos, she said, "Mum, you could have had something else in your hand besides sorbent toilet rolls." Yeah, the sorbent toilet rolls. They're still around.
No place to have a drink.
Okay, so when she's going through the items there, I remember when we were doing the interview, when I was doing the interview with Veronica, we were having a look at those photos, and she was going back and she was remembering them, and she's still remembering them to this day, which is remarkable. A real sort of testament to memory.
I think that's something that when you're in a job as a young person, it's something that you actually can recall very quickly. I know that when I first started in the library, we were a subscription library here in Namball, and that meant that you had to pay. And there were it was pre-computer, long way before computers, and we got to know everybody in town by name and address. And it's not too many years ago that I actually met a lady, and she looked familiar to me, and she looked at me and she said, I know you. Where do I know you from? And I said, probably the library. She said, yeah, that would be right. I said, do you still live at such and such an address? And she said, yes. I didn't remember that. Well, you can imagine I think we had 63 Smiths in our subscription list. And we knew them all by their first and sometimes middle name, and certainly by their address. So these things were in our heads. Yeah. And, when you're seeing someone on a regular basis, you don't want to ask them their name and where they live every time you see them walk in the door. And so, as you say, memory is an amazing thing.
And the thing that also surprises me about that is how eager I think everyone was to embrace this idea of the American supermarket, whereas I go into often big department stores now, and what I would do for someone to actually walk up to me and say, "Could I help you, please?"
How times have changed.
Very much times have changed. Okay, so we're going to come now to our last story here, and this, of course, is the beautiful story around June Upton and the beauty quests from the 1950s. How would we describe June Upton, Jenny?
A lot of people know June. If you've lived in Namball very long, I'd be surprised if you didn't know June. June is Namball for a lot of people, and has been for a lot of years.
Yes.
I first encountered June when I was a teenager, I think, and she was working in one of the berry stores, one of the takeaway places in town, and I remember her from there. And then she was always, her face was always seen in the local paper, the Namball Chronicle, for various reasons. There were beauty quests, I suppose you'd call them, of the day. I'm sure a lot of them weren't based only on beauty, but a whole lot of other things. Come to mind, Miss North Coast Showgirl was a big deal in town. And I know June was involved there because I have a photo of her in her sash with a couple of other girls, of course with their gloves and their hats as well. I think the date on this is in the late 50s.
Oh, yes. Isn't it a great photo?
Yes.
And can you tell us which one? Do you know which one she is?
I know which one she is.
Can we just come back on that photo, guys?
She's the lady on. If it's the same photo, I can't see your photo.
She's the one on the
right,
wearing the yellow sash. Yeah, wearing the yellow sash.
I can't see it in colour here.
Yeah.
I have lots of photos. Well, I should say the Heritage Library has lots of photos of June through the years, and she was involved in quite a few different competitions. But deportment and being out there in society was a big thing in the 50s, and there were lots of competitions. I've also seen one here for the Golden Pineapple Festival Queen competition. Now, I'm not sure if June was in that, but I wouldn't be surprised. There's another one. Oh, what's this one? Oh, no, then I picked up a couple of marching girl photos as well. I know that's not so much about the deportment and all the rest, but marching girls were huge in town as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of families were very involved in marching girls.
Yes.
Yes. I do remember June was the face of the Miss Australia quest on the coast for many years. And she did a lot of money raising for charities, many and varied. I think Namball would owe June a lot.
Yes,
in that regard.
I got the feeling that June, she came from a family that worked very hard in businesses. I think her dad was a taxi driver, and I think her mum might have run at one point a sort of a boarding house, and then I think they went into, might have been something like a cafe. But I think
do remember her in a cafe in the southern part of the street on the hill here.
Yeah. And I get the feeling that June decided at a certain point that she really wanted to sort of put back into the town, and she would run, she was very involved in those whole sort of deportment things, which when you sort of look back on it, it kind of seems a bit sort of strange for us in context to sort of the world that we live in today. But back then, I suppose, there was that real sort of emphasis, there was that sort of fascination on women looking certain ways and behaving in certain ways and carrying themselves physically in certain ways.
Yes, exactly. And hence the hat and the gloves. There were you needed to conform
Yes.
to be successful
Yes.
in those times.
Yeah.
And of course, then there was also the debutante ball, which was the beginning of girls going out into society, and they moved on into these other competitions.
Yeah. Okay, so let's now have a listen to the last story, which is around June, and we've got this parked in Queen Street as you're doing the Nambour Soundtrail. Now again, we're very lucky that we've got an animation here. This animation was made by Matt Cook, who's again from the Stories from the Red Couch Productions. So Matt made this piece, and we're going to have a listen to June now. Thank you.
Namball used to be such a social town, and quests were very popular. There would be all these processions, and we'd all queue up in front of the Civic. You couldn't put a pin between the people. With the Sugar Festival finalist, I said to my mother one day, "Mum, can I please enter that quest?" And she said yes, and I was very proud to become one of the finalists one year, and I thought that was lovely. So in 1956, I was presented at the Namball Showground at the show ball. And I thought I was like Cinderella, as you do. And it was a white tulle dress. It was all embroidered. It had a lovely deep V bodice encrusted with pearls and diamantes. And in those days I had an 18-inch waist, which no one would believe me today. I think I should have been twins and haven't divided. But anyway, it was a beautiful bodice with the tulle skirt. And I used to think I was like a fairy, but I was also amongst wonderful, beautiful-looking girls. So I was in good company. Nambour had beautiful girls. We're all good stock, you know.
So that's the story, which is from on June, and I think we've called it something like Nambour's Got Beautiful Girls, which is, I think, said without a hint of irony, which is so lovely. And I think there's something really quite beautiful about that, really, and hats off to June. So June, if you're out there, if your family's watching, we're all kind of wishing you well. Okay, so that sort of largely brings us to the end of what's going on here with the Nambour Heritage Soundtrail. I'm kind of curious, Jenny, just before we finish up, do you see that the sort of the digital future's the way that you're going to go a little bit with heritage, or are you going to sort of how does that sort of factor into what you're doing?
The digital world is definitely where we're heading. We have a large collection of material that's in many formats, and so there is quite a bit of work to be done to make these collections accessible online for everyone to see on their computers or phones or wherever. But our formats are very broad, and people might not realise we have, if they've been to the Heritage website, they may have a bit better idea of what we actually offer to our public. We have what were called oral histories in their day. So the libraries collected people's stories, had interviews with them during their lives some years back, some decades ago really. And so that material is being digitised, and we're continuing to do that and make it available online. There's also, we have acquired donations from some people in the public who were lucky enough in the early days of movie cameras, Super 8, reel-to-reel, a whole range of different film formats, that also are being digitised and will make an appearance on our website in the near future. It does take time though, and it also takes care to make sure that those stories are authentic and local. I have to say that the Heritage Library is keeping the region's past alive through this collection, the preservation and interpretation of our local stories, using the materials that we've gathered over decades. It's, dare I say, a never-ending job, and there's always more history out there to collect, because you all know that history isn't always old. History is being made today, and I don't think we could be any clearer in what's going on around us as we speak. This last year, 2020, is going to go down as a massive year in our history, and so we're also collecting material and people's experiences around that, and hopefully that will come to light, and we can look back on it and think, my goodness, how glad we are that that's over. But who knows what the future will bring. So, the staff here in the Heritage Library are always keen to assist anyone who's looking for anything in particular to do with, the history of their area, their particular town. I would suggest that anyone interested could go onto the Heritage website. It's one of Council's websites, so it's heritage.sunshinecoast.qld.gov.au, and have a look through our collections. There's a multitude of those. There's a lot of stories that there that I'm sure would pass the time if you've got your feet up and you're having a bit of a break. If you love history, go and have a look. I guess our biggest claim to fame is our images collection, which is called Picture Sunshine Coast. Now that has been being collected for the last 40 years and covers most eras of the coast. I have to say we don't have a lot of contemporary material there, but that's something that we're looking to remedy in the near future too. So if you've got if you want to get in touch, you can always go to the website. The contact details are there, and we'd be most happy to make your acquaintance and to help you out with your interest. The library itself is on the top floor of the Namball Library in Namball, on the corner of Berry Street and Curry Street, and we're sort of tucked down in front of the council building.
And of course,
there's much more I can say.
Yeah, and of course, all of this, not only the good work that Jenny's doing at the library with Heritage, but also the Nambour Heritage Soundtrail is all made available thanks to the council, the Heritage Levy. And we really encourage everyone out there who's watching something like this to promote that and to celebrate that. This is really about engaging people with our stories, our connections to each other, our common history that we all have. So I just want to make a quick kind of hat off to the competition that the Sunshine Coast Council are running at the moment, the Nambour Heritage Soundtrail competition. You can see the web address there down the bottom. We've been plugging that while we've been talking. So please check it out. There's some fantastic prizes there. And please, while I'm doing a call... Well, yeah, it's finishing quite soon. But while I'm doing a call to action, also please do share this Zoom Facebook live stream session. Share that with friends who you know who've got a connection with Nambour, who might have family connections. I think a lot of people will relate to some of the stories that we've played today. Check out the Soundtrail and have a look at some of the stories there. If you go onto the website, you can also copy those links and you can send those to your friends on social media. And finally, I'd just like to say too, that if you go onto the Nambour Heritage Soundtrail website, you'll see a give us your feedback. So if you're having a listen to some of the stories, you're welcome to give us some feedback, tell us what you think of this. So Jenny, any parting words here?
Oh, well, now you put me on the spot. Parting words. Well, I'd say hop on board, and if you haven't done the Soundtrail, certainly do it. Download it on your phone. You can do that here in the library if your Wi-Fi is not that flash, and you can head off. It starts here in the library courtyard, so you can fill in an hour or so next weekend. Or actually, if you want to enter this, you better get doing it today or tomorrow, or the Wednesday the 30th. So that's the cutoff. It's really very enlightening, I think, and to be standing on the corner of a street and have sound effects around you. It's a strange feeling, but I'm sure it's something that you will enjoy. So I've done it a couple of times. I highly recommend it. So hop on out there and come visit Namball if you haven't been in for a while.
Yeah, it's a town of quite a few surprises, I think, and the Soundtrail is one of those surprises. Okay, so I'd like to wrap it up there. Thank you very much, Jenny, Heritage Librarian from the Sunshine Coast Council Library. My name is Hamish Sewell, and please thank you very much for joining us, everybody. See you later.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
My mother and grandmother would not have gone into the pub, any pub, if it had been a no-no place to have a drink.